That's Britney Spears' voice cutting through years of silence, speaking words that were stolen from her for over a decade. But this wasn't just about her conservatorship. What she's about to reveal goes way darker, way deeper into Hollywood's most dangerous secret. He said he would do it while Cudi was out of the country. That's Diddy, on tape, threatening to take someone's life. And according to Britney Spears' new explosive breakdown, this same man, along with Ashton Kutcher, is directly connected to the death of someone she knew, someone who died under impossible circumstances, someone named Brittany Murphy. She felt like someone was out to get her, that someone wanted her gone. Two Britneys, one mansion, one truth that Hollywood has been burying for over 16 years. And now, Britney Spears is finally ready to say the names. Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about this industry. Here's the thing about Hollywood. It loves to compartmentalize its traumas. It likes to keep its disasters separated, isolated, unconnected. One death is a tragedy. Two deaths are a coincidence. But when you start pulling the threads, when you connect the people, the places, the patterns, suddenly those coincidences start looking like evidence. And right now, Britney Spears is pulling threads that are unraveling everything. Let me set the scene for you. It's the early 2000s. Hollywood is glittering. The parties are legendary. The secrets are deeper than anyone on the outside could possibly imagine. And somewhere in the Hollywood Hills, on a street called Rising Glen Road, there's a mansion. An absolutely stunning property, 10,000 square feet of marble, glass, and everything a young star could want. Except it has a darkness to it, a presence, an energy that makes people feel watched. Britney Spears lived there first, and according to her recent revelations, the moment she stepped into that house, she felt it. Not just unease, not just a bad vibe, but something genuinely sinister, something that made her skin crawl so intensely that she abandoned her own belongings and fled. She didn't just leave the house, she ran from it. But here's where it gets chilling. Years later, that same mansion became home to Brittany Murphy. And unlike Britney Spears, who had the resources and power to escape, Brittany Murphy didn't. She stayed. She lived there with her husband, Simon Monjack. And within those walls, her life didn't just spiral. It ended. Now, the official story was always simple. Pneumonia, anemia, a toxic mix of medications. But almost immediately, the people who loved her, her family, her friends, they knew something was off. They knew the official story didn't add up. They could feel it.
From her dying,
there were more unanswered questions after the autopsy came out than there were answered questions.
That's the fundamental question that nobody wanted to ask. And that's where Ashton Kutcher and Diddy come in. Most people didn't know it, but Ashton Kutcher and Brittany Murphy had history, real history. They met on the set of Just Married back in the early 2000s. They dated. They were linked romantically. But here's what people don't talk about. They stayed connected even after things ended between them romantically. Ashton didn't disappear from her orbit. He just moved to the background. And while Ashton was floating in and out of Britney's life, he was also running deep in Diddy's circles. According to reports, their friendship started in the early 2000s and took off fast. They were watching football games together, hanging out regularly, moving through the same party scenes. These weren't casual acquaintances. These were two men at the center of Hollywood's most exclusive social ecosystem. Now, Diddy's parties were legendary. Not because they were glamorous, though they absolutely were, but because they operated on a different level. A level that the public wasn't supposed to see. According to multiple sources, these weren't just parties. They were operations, blackmail ops, control mechanisms, places where powerful people could do things that would destroy them if the footage ever got out.
He lunged at me with a wine opener. I ran to Scott's house and used a burner phone.
That's Cassie Ventura's voice, describing the moment Diddy became violent with her. And then
he told her that he wouldn't be harming her and Kid Cudi with his own hands, and it would happen when he was out of the country.
Diddy threatening to have someone killed, on record. And the chilling part, the way it was described, it gave off the vibe that he'd done this before, that he knew exactly how to cover his tracks, that this wasn't his first time orchestrating something like this. So now imagine Brittany Murphy, young, beautiful, a rising star, connected to Ashton Kutcher, who is connected to Diddy. And imagine she starts asking questions. Imagine she starts going to those parties and seeing things she wasn't supposed to see. Imagine she discovers what's really happening behind those closed doors. That's when things get dangerous. In her final months, Brittany Murphy's behavior shifted dramatically. The people close to her described her as withdrawn, terrified, convinced that someone was watching watching her. She told people, directly, explicitly, that she thought she was being poisoned. At the time, everyone chalked it up to mental health issues, stress, Hollywood pressure. But Britney Spears, having just lived through 16 years of actual manipulation and control, is now looking back at Brittany Murphy's behavior and recognizing something deeply familiar. She's recognizing the signature of someone being targeted, someone being silenced before they could speak. Think about it. Britney Spears spent over a decade unable to make decisions about her own body. She was forced to take medications that left her unable to think clearly. She was trapped by people who claimed to be protecting her, but were actually controlling her. Every aspect of her life, her money, her relationships, her choices, was managed by others. Now imagine that level of control, but cranked up. Now imagine it's not your father and lawyers doing it, but Hollywood's most powerful men. Imagine you're being isolated. Imagine your food is being controlled. Imagine your phone, your email, your communications are being monitored. Imagine you're living in a house that feels actively hostile to your existence. Britney was deeply uncomfortable there. She felt unsettled, on edge, and would often retreat to the bathroom, the only place she described as her safe space. That's Britney Murphy's reality. The only safe space in her entire mansion was a bathroom in a house that Britney Spears had already fled from in terror. Now enter Simon Monjack, her husband. Here's a man with a messy history: lawsuits, unpaid bills, shady dealings. He starts seeing Britney when she's just 17 years old. After they marry, he consolidates control over her entire life. He becomes her manager, he fires her team, he takes control of her finances, he limits her access to her own communication devices, he keeps her locked in the house. According to reports, he wouldn't let her leave without him. She was a prisoner in her own home. And the truly sinister part? Simon wasn't acting alone. Here's what the official autopsy said: pneumonia, anemia, a toxic mix of prescription medications. Case closed. Here's what Britney's father thought: murder. So he hired a private investigator. He had her hair tested by an independent lab, and what they found wasn't some minor environmental exposure. What they found was shocking. Massive levels of heavy metals, antimony, barium, the type of chemicals you'd find in pesticides, rat poison, warfare toxins, the type of chemicals used in slow poisoning. That's not just environmental, that screams slow, calculated poisoning. Think about the progression. Britney starts feeling paranoid. She becomes convinced someone is poisoning her. Her friends and family dismiss it as mental health issues. But what if she wasn't paranoid? What if she was poisoned? What if her anxiety and fear weren't symptoms of a psychological breakdown, but rather rational responses to an actual threat? Now, here's where it gets darker. Because if Britney Murphy was being slowly poisoned, by whom? And more importantly, why? According to the theory that's now circulating, Britney Murphy had access to dangerous information. She knew things about Ashton and Diddy. She knew things about the parties. She knew things about the control mechanisms that kept powerful people in line. And she was starting to ask questions. Maybe she even tried to get out. Maybe she tried to speak up. In Hollywood, speaking is all it takes to erase you. Let's pause on the poisoning theory for a second and look at something equally disturbing: the house itself. Britney Spears lived in that Rising Glen Road mansion. She described strange, unsettling experiences. She talked about feeling an oppressive energy. She claimed she felt like she was being shoved down the stairs by unseen hands. The energy was so dark that she abandoned her belongings and left immediately. Britney felt deeply uncomfortable in the home, even claiming there was a strange, oppressive energy inside. She quickly sold it, moving out almost as fast as she moved in. Now, before you dismiss this as supernatural, before you think this is about ghosts, let's be clear about what Britney Spears was probably sensing. She wasn't sensing spirits. She was sensing surveillance. She was sensing that the house itself was being used as a tool, that it was bugged, that it was wired, that powerful people were using it to monitor, control, and manipulate the women who lived there. Because here's what happens when Britney Murphy moves in. She immediately starts experiencing the same feelings of being watched. She installs fingerprint locks and high-level security. But unlike Britney Spears, she can't leave. She's trapped. And within that house, surrounded by surveillance, isolated from her support system, controlled by her husband, she deteriorates rapidly. 5 months after Britney Murphy dies, Simon Monjack dies in the exact same house from the exact same causes: pneumonia, anemia. Now, here's the theory that's starting to gain traction. Simon wasn't just Britney's husband. He was her handler. He was the person tasked with keeping her contained, with keeping her quiet. And when Britney died, whether from poisoning or some other cause, Simon became a liability. He knew too much. He'd seen too much, so he got taken out too. Clean, quiet. Another mysterious death attributed to natural causes. Two healthy adults gone in identical ways in the same place. Coincidence or something far more sinister? Here's something that connects all of these pieces together. The hospital. When Brittany Murphy collapsed, she was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. That name might not mean anything to you, but to people who've been researching this, it's a red flag. Because Cedars-Sinai isn't just where Brittany Murphy died. It's where Biggie died, it's where Pop Smoke died, it's where a long list of celebrities have died under circumstances that never quite made sense. And every single one of those deaths has some connection, however indirect, to Diddy. Now, we're not saying that Cedars-Sinai is involved in a conspiracy, but we are saying that if you have the resources and the connections that Diddy has, you can influence outcomes, you can control narratives, you can make sure that autopsies are handled carelessly, as one source put it, so that there's insufficient medical evidence to prosecute. The coroner who handled Brittany Murphy's autopsy didn't test for heavy metals. When asked why, the answer was basically, we don't test for that unless there's a clear reason to suspect something shady. But come on, Brittany literally told people she thought she was being poisoned. How is that not reason enough? If Brittany literally said she thought someone was poisoning her, how is that not reason enough? This is the pattern. This is how it works. Someone starts asking too many questions. Someone gets too close to the truth. Someone threatens to expose what's really happening. And then suddenly, they're dead. Pneumonia, anemia, natural causes, case closed. Here's what Ashton Kutcher never did after Brittany Murphy died. He never posted a tribute. He never gave an interview about her. He never spoke about the loss of someone he had dated, someone he had been close to. He just went silent. For years, people have wondered why. Why such a complete radio silence? Why not even a simple acknowledgement of someone's death, especially when you're positioned as someone who cared about her? Now, Britney Spears is suggesting an answer. What if Ashton wasn't silent because he was grieving? What if he was silent because he was complicit? According to the emerging narrative, Ashton was the bridge. He was the person who introduced Brittany Murphy to Diddy's circles. He was the person who may have encouraged her to attend those parties, to be part of that world. And when things went wrong, when Brittany started asking questions, when she started wanting out, Ashton wasn't there to save her. He was there to ensure her silence. Think about it. Ashton has built his entire public image around being an anti-trafficking activist. He's positioned himself as a fighter against exploitation. He's used that image to seem morally unimpeachable. But what if that was always a cover? What if his activism was designed to throw people off his scent? What if he was using his anti-trafficking work as a shield against suspicion? Him rebranding as this activist frontlining the fight against trafficking while also being in Diddy circles and seeing him do the wicked stuff he's being charged with is just the height of hypocrisy. Because here's the thing about power in Hollywood. It operates through proximity. If you're close enough to the powerful people, if you're useful enough to them, you get protection, you get access. You get to do things that would destroy an ordinary person, and all you have to do is keep your mouth shut. Ashton kept his mouth shut about Brittany Murphy for 16 years, until now, until Britney Spears started asking questions. Remember what Cassie Ventura said? She tried to leave Diddy, she ran to Kid Cudi, and Diddy responded by threatening to kill him. Not just threaten, actually plan it out. He said he'd do it when Cudi was out of the country. He said he wouldn't use his own hands. He knew exactly how to orchestrate it so that it wouldn't trace back to him. Now imagine that same calculating violence turned on Brittany Murphy. Imagine Diddy had already perfected this system. Imagine he knew exactly how to eliminate someone and make it look like natural causes. Imagine that by the time Brittany Murphy was a problem, Diddy had already done it before. How many times before Brittany?
Later, Diddy not only threatened to have her freak-off tapes released, but that he would harm not only her, but also Kid Cudi, which I'm sure you know he's very capable of doing so.
That's Cassie. That's her describing the moment she realized Diddy wasn't just controlling, he was dangerous. He was willing to take lives to maintain his power. And if Ashton was in those circles, if Ashton was watching this happen, if Ashton saw what Diddy was capable of, then what does that say about Ashton's choice to stay silent when Brittany Murphy died? Here's another layer to this horror story. Kim Porter, Diddy's ex. She died in 2018 under circumstances that matched Brittany Murphy's death almost exactly: pneumonia. And before she died, according to reports, she was paranoid. She felt like she was being watched. She felt like she might be being poisoned. Exactly what Brittany Murphy said. The same man's name keeps floating in the background of these deaths. The same fear keeps appearing. The same symptoms, the same hospital, the same coroner potentially involved. At what point does it stop being coincidence? In 2018, Diddy's ex Kim Porter also passed under super sketchy circumstances. Her official cause of death was the same pneumonia that claimed both Brittany and her husband. This is Britney Spears' core argument now. She's not just connecting the dots between her own conservatorship control and Brittany Murphy's isolation. She's connecting it to a pattern of Diddy eliminating people who pose a threat to him, a pattern of using the system, the hospitals, the coroners, the legal infrastructure, to cover it up. Let's go back to the house one more time, because there's something deeply unsettling about the fact that Britney Spears fled from it, and then Brittany Murphy moved in and died in it. Was the house cursed? Possibly in a spiritual sense, if you believe in such things. But more likely, it was curated. It was set up. It was designed to be a tool of control. The perfect trap for a young woman who was becoming inconvenient. Think about what we know. Britney Spears sensed something evil in that house. She fled. Years later, Brittany Murphy moves in and experiences the exact same oppressive energy. She feels watched. She feels trapped. She retreats to the only space that feels safe, a bathroom. What if the house itself was bugged? What if there were cameras? What if every moment of Brittany Murphy's life in that mansion was being monitored and recorded, not for the purposes of surveillance security, but for the purposes of control and leverage? We know that Diddy's freak-off parties involved filming people without their consent. We know that footage was used as blackmail. We know that Diddy used compromising material to keep people in line. Is it really a stretch to think that the same system was being used in Brittany Murphy's home? She couldn't sleep properly in the house, that it felt heavy, wrong, like she was constantly being watched. Because here's what Britney Spears is now saying, and it's starting to make a terrible kind of sense. Both Britneys lived in the same house. Both Britneys were surrounded by powerful men who benefited from their silence. Both Britneys were isolated, controlled, and made to feel unsafe. And one of them didn't escape. Britney Spears spent 16 years in a conservatorship that stripped her of her autonomy. She was forced to take medications that clouded her mind. She was forbidden from making her own choices. She was controlled by people who claimed to be protecting her. And when she finally got out, when she finally regained her freedom, she wrote a memoir called The Woman in Me. In it, she detailed everything: the abuse, the manipulation, the systematic erosion of her humanity. But according to sources close to Britney, the memoir was just the beginning, because while she was writing about her own ordeal, she was also starting to piece together what happened to Brittany Murphy. She was starting to understand that Brittany Murphy wasn't just a victim of bad luck or toxic mold or a controlling husband. Brittany Murphy was a victim of the same system that had tried to break Britney Spears, the system that Ashton Kutcher and Diddy ran. She described being silenced and stripped of her autonomy, forced to take powerful medications that left her unable to think clearly, speak freely, or even make decisions about her own body. That's Britney Spears describing her own experience. But listen to those words and replace her name with Brittany Murphy's name. The system doesn't change. The people wielding the power don't change. Only the victim changes. And now Britney Spears is using her freedom, her voice, and her platform to connect those dots publicly. She's naming names. She's pulling back the curtain. She's doing what Brittany Murphy never got the chance to do. Here's what we know Britney Spears has said about the house. She felt an evil presence. She fled immediately. She never went back. She described the energy as so dark that she abandoned her own belongings in her rush to escape. That's not a metaphor. That's not an exaggeration. That's a young woman describing a genuine threat that she sensed so acutely that she was willing to leave everything behind to get away from it. Now, Britney Spears is saying that she knows what created that energy. It wasn't ghosts. It was power. It was surveillance. It was a space designed to trap, control, and ultimately silence young women who knew too much. And she believes that when Brittany Murphy moved into that same house, she walked into the same trap. Except Brittany Murphy didn't have the resources or the power to escape like Britney Spears did. Brittany Murphy was boxed in, literally, living in that house with a controlling husband, isolated from her support system, slowly being poisoned. The whole thing was orchestrated.
I brought 4 sheets of paper in my hands and wrote in length what I had been through the last 4 months before I came there. The people who did that to me should not be able to walk away so easily.
That's Britney Spears, speaking from her experience, speaking from her pain, and now she's applying that experience to Brittany Murphy's case. She's saying, these are the same people, this is the same system, and they can't be allowed to walk away from this. After Brittany Murphy died, the investigation was, let's call it, handled carelessly. The autopsy reports had insufficient medical evidence to prosecute. The mold theory came and went. The heavy metals found in Brittany's hair were acknowledged and then dismissed. Every avenue that could have led to the truth truth was closed off. Why? Because the people responsible had the resources and connections to close those avenues. They had friends at the hospital, they had friends at the coroner's office, they had friends in the legal system, and more importantly, they had leverage. If anyone started getting too close to the truth, they could use the footage from the house. They could release the tapes. They could destroy careers and lives. They could ensure compliance through fear. This is how power works in Hollywood. It's not about being right. It's about having the dirt on the people who could expose you. And Diddy, according to everything we're hearing from Britney Spears and others, had dirt on everyone. What is going on behind those hospital doors? That's the question nobody wanted to ask. Because asking it meant going up against people who had already proven they were willing to eliminate anyone who became too much of a problem. Here's what changed everything: Diddy's arrest, the federal investigation, the trial. Suddenly, people who had been silent for years started talking. Cassie came forward, other accusers came forward, and all of that exposed a much larger system of exploitation and control. Now, with Diddy facing actual prosecution, some of his former associates are starting to wonder about their own culpability. They're starting to realize that their silence might not protect them, that cooperation might be their only way out. According to reports, Ashton Kutcher is on the edge. He's considering coming clean about things he's known for years. Things about Diddy, things about the parties, things about what happened to Brittany Murphy. Is Ashton going to flip? Is he going to try to save himself by exposing his former friend? After staying quiet for years, he is now allegedly ready to expose how Diddy was involved in Brittany Murphy's sudden and suspicious death.